Welcome back to The Explainer. We spend a ton of time thinking about how individual consumers buy things, right? But what actually happens behind the closed doors of a massive corporation, or a university, or a major hospital? We're talking about millions of dollars, highly structured processes, and incredibly high stakes. So today, we're demystifying the business-to-business universe by totally decoding organizational buying behavior.
Okay, we've got a solid roadmap for this explainer today. We'll start with you versus the organization, then move right into defining organizational buying. From there, we'll unpack the 6 key characteristics, figure out who buys and how, and finally wrap up with mastering B2B marketing.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, you versus the organization.
To really wrap our heads around how businesses buy, we first need to realize how completely different it is from how you and I buy. Think about this for a second. How is buying a single laptop for yourself different from a university buying 500 laptops for a brand new computer lab? I mean, when you buy a laptop, you probably read a few reviews, pick a cool color, double-check your bank account, and just click Add to Cart. It's quick, it's emotional, and you're the only one calling the shots. But buying 500 laptops? That is an entirely different universe.
Yeah, when we talk about consumer buying, it's for personal consumption. It's just you making the decision, and honestly, it happens pretty quickly. But organizational buying, completely different rulebook. The purchase isn't for fun, it's literally to keep business operations running. It involves way more people, IT teams, finance directors, purchasing managers, and the whole thing is just incredibly formal and structured. So it's not just a bigger purchase, it's a completely different game altogether.
Which brings us to Section 2, defining what this actually is. What is OBB?
Formally speaking, organizational buying behavior, or OBB, is the decision-making process through which business organizations purchase goods and services for business purposes, rather than personal consumption. So whether it's a giant hotel chain buying huge quantities of food and linens, or a factory buying raw materials and heavy machinery, these purchases are strictly for operations, production, or resale.
So it all boils down to one simple word: purpose. Students and professionals actually confuse consumer and organizational buying all the time. But just keep this in the back of your mind. If it's for personal or household use, it's consumer buying. If it's for a business or institutional purpose, it's organizational. It is all about the why behind the transaction.
Okay, moving to Section 3, the 6 key traits that make organizational buying unique.
I've got a great little memory trick to help this stick. Just remember the letters B, D, F, M, L, L. These are basically the 6 pillars of OBB. B is for business purpose, which means improving organizational performance. D is for derived demand. F means fewer buyers but much larger purchases. M stands for multiple decision makers. And those 2 L's, they stand for long-term relationships and a logical, formal decision process. Let's actually zoom in on a couple of the really fascinating ones on this list.
Take the D, for instance, derived demand. This concept is just brilliant. Businesses don't just buy things for the fun of it, right? Their demand is entirely driven by the everyday consumer. For example, a huge furniture manufacturer only purchases timber because you and I want to buy a new dining table. If our demand for furniture drops, the manufacturer's demand for timber drops immediately too. The business demand is essentially an echo. It's derived directly from the consumer market. Now think about the F. Fewer buyers, larger purchases. Just to put the sheer scale of this into perspective, a typical high-end consumer purchase might be, $1,000? But in the organizational market, a single purchase can easily blow past $100,000, scaling up into lakhs or even crores of rupees. Because the financial volume is so massive, these organizations absolutely cannot afford to make a mistake. There are fewer customers out there, sure, but the size of each order is just staggering.
When you stack the 2 worlds side by side, the contrast is wild. While consumers buy small quantities frequently, and honestly, we jump from one brand to another all the time, organizations buy massive quantities based on strict business needs. They use committees instead of a single person. And because the stakes are sky high, they desperately want long-term, stable relationships with their suppliers. They're looking for consistent quality, timely delivery, and lower costs over years, not just days.
All right, Section 4. Who is actually doing all this buying, and how exactly does it work?
It's really easy to just picture some generic corporate high-rise when we talk about this, but organizational buyers are everywhere. Yes, it includes standard businesses buying inputs for production, but it also includes the government buying infrastructure and defense supplies, it's educational institutions buying lab equipment, it's hospitals buying diagnostic devices, and even nonprofits buying supplies for charity work. Everyone, from your local clinic to the federal government, operates under these exact same rules.
But who's actually pulling the trigger? Unlike you standing in a store aisle by yourself, organizations use a highly trained, multi-layered team. It's a whole squad. You've got department managers who need the product, purchase officers doing the heavy negotiating, technical experts making sure the specs are flawless, finance executives controlling the purse strings, and senior management giving the final nod. Every single supplier is evaluated totally objectively based on quality, cost, and reliability.
So how do they actually make it happen? They follow a super rigorous 7-step journey. It kicks off with recognizing a need and writing down incredibly strict specifications. Then the hunt begins for the right supplier, followed by an objective evaluation of alternatives, which usually means lining up formal quotes side by side. Once they finally make the purchase decision and place the order, guess what? It's still not over. The final, absolutely crucial step is performance evaluation, where they decide if that supplier relationship is actually worth keeping around. It is a very logical, chronological path.
Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, Mastering B2B Marketing, and why this absolutely matters for you.
Look, if you want to sell to these corporate giants, understanding this whole process is basically the ultimate business cheat code. By mastering organizational buying behavior, you can accurately identify business customers and actually speak their language. You learn how to build those highly sought-after long-term relationships. You know exactly how to tweak and customize your products to meet their rigid specs. It totally levels up your negotiation strategies because you realize you're dealing with pros, which, at the end of the day, massively enhances your profitability.
There's a fantastic managerial insight here that says companies that consistently meet these expectations often develop long-term partnerships and gain a competitive advantage. Selling to organizations is so much more than just having a shiny product. Business customers expect top-tier technical support, perfectly timed deliveries, competitive pricing, and absolutely bulletproof after-sales service. When you nail that, you aren't just a vendor anymore. You literally become an essential partner to their survival.
So that leaves us with one final, pretty big question. We've seen the massive scale, the tight structure, and the incredible profitability of the B2B universe. You now know exactly how these giant entities make their decisions, step by step. So are you ready to stop just selling to consumers and start partnering with organizations? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this gives you a completely fresh perspective on how the corporate world actually does business. Catch you in the next one.